Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a valuation expert witness in St. Louis, Missouri. I have the pleasure of discussing pink collar crime, fraud, and embezzlement with Kelly Paxton, who is a private investigator and certified fraud examiner in Portland, Oregon, or I just learned, Bend, Oregon. You have some ideas of how you can be proactive when you're selling a business. And if you're the buyer, how can you not be concerned that there's a fraud that's taken place if you're coming in and to look at this business?
So we talked about this a little bit before the show, but I have this colleague who does documentation. So she'll go in and she'll do from A to Z all your business processes. I call this a sort of getting hit by the bus book. I've always had it wherever I worked. So if for some reason I can't come in, someone can go to my desk and know exactly what they need to do to keep the business running. I think if you're a business owner and you're going to sell a business, and I've worked a lot of cases where, the sales go south. They're like, the buyer comes in and says, you didn't have 10x in sales. You only had 5x in sales. And it's like, if it's all documented in advance, I think it's like a very inexpensive insurance policy, because you can say, this was in my book, like that our sales every year are 5x. And this year it was 10x. But this was a one-off, or, we only have a contract for so many years or something like that. I think if you document it, it protects you as the seller, because no one wants to hire attorneys after you've gone and retired and, you moved to Florida with your boat and everything like that. And all of a sudden the buyer comes back and says, or the buyer's attorney comes back and says, your numbers weren't good and you falsified stuff. If you have documentation showing all of your processes, you can say, no. If they had read, subsection 3B, they would see that this contract expired in, whatever. I just think it's really like, it's so important that you document things so they can't come back to you. Mm-hmm. Family disputes. There's family disputes where it's like, you didn't disclose this. I can't get out of bed in the morning if I think people are always out to get me. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, I don't think people are out to get me or get people, but people think money solves everything. Mm-hmm. They just think money solves everything. And the more of it, the better. Mm-hmm. And so, when the buyer doesn't get as much as they thought, the first thing they think of is, I'm going to sue. Mm-hmm. They lied. And it's like, if you have documentation showing everything and not leaving stuff out, I think you're protected. So I've worked with business brokers, and when they heard about this, because I got all excited for it, because I was kind of like, why wouldn't you do this? I mean, you should have it, because like, especially COVID, God forbid, what if you have an employee who gets sick and dies from COVID, and they have the keys to the kingdom? What do you do? Mm-hmm. Like, do you know how to get into, your ERP? No, mm-hmm. That person did, or they're in the hospital, or they're intubated. Like, you have to know how everything works. And you as the business owner, the buck stops with you. So right. Be proactive.
Well, and I know that when we've done valuations for companies who are selling, or buyers that are looking like, oh, is this a reasonable price? I remember we had a client once, and we started to do the analysis and show him like what the valuation looked like. And he was like, what are these numbers? We're like, those are the, whatever it was, the financial statements or the tax returns. He was like, oh, those aren't the right books. And he's like, where did you get those from? Because I don't think that those are the right books. There's a different set of books. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me, right? Like, you're kidding me. Like, I don't stop talking. Stop talking. Because, another interesting thing in the valuation world, and it used to be in the accounting world too, is that in our engagement letters and everything, we say, we're not coming in to detect fraud. I'm not going to do analysis deep enough to, we do ratios and stuff. which you will sometimes uncover that there's something weird going on. But we don't go to the level of trying to detect and determine the fraud or quantify the fraud. But clearly, if somebody's going to sit me down in a meeting and say, you have two different sets of books, you've now raised the red flag, fraud flag. And now I'm like, okay, well, stop talking. I'm not involved with this anymore. Like, I don't know where to go because I can't provide a valuation based on bad numbers, those types of things. But they just thought it was normal. They're like, oh, well, some things we just don't put in there.